In my previous video I poked a few jokes at the expense of It Chapter 2, but then I thought, hey, why stop at a few jokes when bullying exists? It's not like this movie has already undergone heavy rehabilitation from all the bullying it received when it first got released. And to be honest, I myself don't even really know why I'm making this video nearly a year after this film came out. Maybe it's the fact that it aged about as well as the United States of America, which makes it a rather easy target, or perhaps it's the fact that this movie embodies the issues of mainstream horror, being the cash grab genre, amazingly well. Even if you're not a superhero movie fan, it's hard to deny that there's a degree of craftsmanship and care that goes into these films, even if it is purely to please the masses and rake in the heaviest profits. From a screenwriting perspective, a lot of them are really soundly written and executed pretty well too. Of course, there are major exceptions, however, in horror, the exceptions are for some reason the soundly written ones. Now, I'm not here to tell you that jump scare is bad and CGI is poo-poo, because a horror movie can't be good without jerking off all the cinephiles. The problem is that it also doesn't have to be good at all to be an astounding success. And people making these movies notice, and that's why we get stuff like It Chapter 2. A brainchild of complete incompetence, lack of fucks given, and stunning unoriginality. I mean, you already know it's bad when the highest praise a movie gets is that it's not as bad as people say, but let me just break this movie down real quick anyways, starting with the story. Now, hopefully I don't have to point this out to people who have seen both It movies, but the biggest issue with the story is that it's blatantly unoriginal. The second movie is nearly a beat-for-beat remake of the first one. The threat is introduced, the characters are introduced one by one, they all experience individual scares, they reconvene and lay siege to the well house, they battle Pennywise, and they win by roasting him to death. On top of that, nearly all of these story beats are way shittier in the second movie for one reason or another. Like, for example, in the first movie, the loser splitting up to experience individual scares happened organically, because they were children and had to go home to their parents eventually. While here one of the characters, like some garbage RPG questmaster, just sent them off to retrieve some random ass artifacts. Why can't they go together? Oh, they just can't. Fuck you for using your brain, dipshit. This is horror, not philosophy. Which brings me to a smaller yet still relevant issue, that the story is just nonsensical. And this is coming from a person who finds nitpicking a stupid form of criticism. Suspending disbelief isn't really that difficult in most minor plot hole cases. The story presented here, however, is fucking dumb. One of the characters brought everyone along for a deadly ritual that didn't work in the past. Now, he didn't reveal this small fact to everyone because he thought that the ritual didn't work in the past, because the tribe that tried it didn't believe that it would work. Right, so is the dude frying his brains in a fucking microwave? Apparently, the tribe just did it thinking that it wouldn't work, and now with the magic of belief, all will be well. What is this corny-ass Teletubby shit? How is anyone supposed to take this seriously and be invested in the story at all? And also, let's not forget that the whole story literally hinges on everyone here seemingly forgetting that not being afraid is all that it takes to beat Pennywise. Another issue that is kind of story-related, but is more just laziness mixed with incompetence, is that of repetitiveness and filler. Now, last time I checked, this isn't an anime waiting for the manga to catch up. So why the hell does it try its best to be as long as humanly possible? There are so many storylines and scenes that never go anywhere, like the whole Henry Bowers subplot, or all these random ass scenes of Pennywise eating children. What's the actual point of them being here? And then there's just repetitiveness. At one point in the film, the same exact scene is repeated 6 times in a row for a solid 40 minutes or so. A character ventures to a place important to them, he finds the item he needed to find, and battles a completely random spook. Then, a character ventures to a place important to them, he finds the item he needed to find, and battles a completely random spook. I'd repeat this 4 more times to really drill in how stupid this is, but the effect still wouldn't be the same. Speaking of repetitiveness, let's talk about horror for a minute. I've heard a lot of people say that the movie isn't scary because we're dealing with adults instead of children now.
I disagree.
Plenty of horror movies with adults are scary. In fact, most horror movies have adults, and sometimes those movies are in fact scary. You'd think having an identical formula for every single scare in the movie would be at blame for It Chapter 2 being less scary than that one SpongeBob episode, but no, it's still the adults that are at fault. And the real issue is a brain-numbingly painful lack of creativity and effort. I know everyone has a different opinion on CGI monsters that are so present in horror movies nowadays. Personally, I like them. I think they can be quite scary sometimes. Luckily, Chapter 2 is nowhere near one of those times. All the monsters in this film are just different shapes and forms of the same vomit. There's nothing unique about them when compared to one another, there's no real depth to them, in terms of their weaknesses or abilities or backstories, and lastly, there's not even a sense of threat to them, as none of them actually do anything to the characters. You might as well just Google scary gifs and loop that shit for 3 hours, the experience would be more or less identical. On one hand, I guess it helps Pennywise stand out as the only interesting spook. On the other hand, every scare in the movie is identical. And while the occasional jump scare might get your heart racing for a bit, the result of that is a movie that is by most considered to be not scary at all, and by others, just straight up boring. I know there's a lot of people that found this movie enjoyable despite all the flaws. None really went for doubles, but I digress. For all I care, enjoy it all you like. I don't see someone liking The Rock's Skyscraper or some shit to be a reason to look down upon that person with mighty superiority. Just know that this is garbage that literally anyone could have made without it being any worse. So before you come at me with that actually it's not that bad BS, just consider for a small second, what this movie could have been with a smidgen of effort put into it.
Oh my lord, oh my god, that girl, she train to go. Any hour, any minute, man, she down the road.